So Donald Trump is dying for the Nobel Peace Prize. He wants it more than anything in this world. And at the same time, he's the same guy that now has the National Guard on the streets. He's the same one who has pretty much declared war on women. He's declared war on the gay and trans community. He's declared war on woke and war on DEI and war on people of color. He's declared war on people coming to this country and making a better way for themselves. I mean, he is absolutely a wartime president. There's no way around it. But he wants the Peace Prize, and in the same breath, he's sitting the Guard in. It just on his own people. It makes no sense, but folks, when it comes to Donald Trump, nothing makes sense. But we're going to try to make sense of this article here that came from The Guardian. This was pretty depressing to see that there are states, and I've even heard my governor say he would consider it. He may have already said it by the time I get done making this video today. But there's going to be states that are going to be sending the Guard to D.C. to help Trump with all of this. And I'm going to be bringing this article up here from The Guardian. 3 states to deploy hundreds of National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. South Carolina, Ohio, and West Virginia in pledging troops, fueling protests over political policing mission. 3 states have moved to deploy hundreds of members of their National Guard to the nation's capital as part of Trump administration's effort to overhaul policing in Washington through federal crackdown. West Virginia said it's now deploying 300 to 400 Guard troops, while South Carolina pledged 200, and Ohio said it would send in 150 in the coming days. The moves announced on Saturday came as protesters pushed back on federal law enforcement and National Guard troops fanning out in the heavily Democratic city following Donald Trump's executive order federalizing local police forces and activating about 800 District of Columbia National Guard members. The office of West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey said in a statement that the deployment was a show of commitment for public safety and regional cooperation, and the state would provide equipment and approximately 300 to 400 skilled personnel as directed. The statement came after Donald Trump ordered hundreds of Washington, D.C. National Guard troops to mount a show of force and temporarily took over the city's police department to curb what the president depicts as a crime and homelessness emergency in the nation's capital. And real quickly, folks, I would just like to point out that this dude, just back in June, was inviting all of his followers to be part of this crime zone so he could have his little parade, which was all when we say it's a distraction, we always need to follow it up and say the whole thing is just one big distraction. It's all a distraction. Everything the dude's doing is. It's not just one particular thing. But last weekend, Trump ordered the district's homeless residents to leave or face forcible relocation after his motorcade passed a handful of unhoused people en route to his golf course outside the city. Folks, that right there tells you pretty much everything you need to know about this president. He's driving past homeless on his way to the golf course, which how many weekends in a row has he went here lately on the taxpayer's dime? The guy that always criticized Obama for any golf game he ever played, but that's all this dude does, and his pompous ass happens to drive by some homeless people, and we have to get them off the streets, and we have to turn the White House and make it look like Mar-a-Lago. It's sickening. It truly is. A Justice Department order to replace the Washington Police Chief Pamela Smith with the DEA head Terry Cole as the city's emergency police commissioner ran into problems after a challenge in federal court by D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwab. Without issuing a direct ruling on the challenge, U.S. District Judge Ann Reyes indicated that Smith had to remain in charge. But efforts to increase federal control of the district resumed on Saturday with the order to deploy West Virginia's National Guard. A spokesperson for Morrisey said that the state's National Guard received the order to send equipment and personnel to D.C. late on Friday and was working to organize the deployment. A White House official told Reuters on Saturday that more National Guard troops were being called into D.C. to protect federal assets, create a safe environment of law enforcement officials to carry out their duties when required, and provide visible presence to deter crime. A protest against Trump's intervention drew scores to DuPont Circle on Saturday before the march to the White House about a mile and a half away. Demonstrators assembled behind a banner that said "No Fascist Takeover of D.C." and some in the crowd held signs saying "No Military Operation." And where in the hell was the tyrannical government crowd? They were sitting back cheering the shit on after years of talking about that tyrannical government and how they had to have their weapons to rise up in that occasion. Where the hell are they now? They're sitting back cheering this crap on, or they're just not talking about it anymore because they realize the amount of egg they now have on their faces. If there truly was a crisis and Joe Biden were to call in the Guard, they would criticize it forever. They would come down on it forever. Donald Trump just pulls this completely out of his ass, and we all know, because we can see the pattern, ever since the Epstein story broke, it's been one big thing after another. And it's very hard for me to think these are all coincidental. So when these states join in and say, yeah, let's go up here and help him out. Let's go up here and help him out. Let's send our guard up there, and let's put more guard on the streets. What I hear from those three states is, hey, let's go out here and help him continue to cover up this Epstein case. Let's go out here and help him continue to distract. The whole thing is such unnecessary chaos. It truly is such unnecessary chaos, and it's all put there to intimidate. It's all put there for him to flex because he has to feel strong. He's a dude who has to go out there and feel like he's a strong man, and he is out here taking advice from dictators. He's talking now about getting rid of mail-in voting. Why? Because a dictator told him it was a good idea. It's crazy to me that this is where we're at in this world, and you're going to see more people protesting. You're going to see more people speaking out because this is not right, folks. This is not who we were supposed to be as a country. It's not where we were supposed to be as a country, and we have to stand up. If we don't, we're going to lose it all. We're going to completely lose what little bit of our democracy we have left. And I talk to so many people who says they don't have any faith that we have a democracy anymore. So many people that says, no, Brando, we already have a dictator. It's already here. And I can't argue with them. When someone says to me, I fear that he won't leave in 2028, I can't argue with them. When someone says to me, I fear that we'll have a dictator installed and they'll just tell us to our face to get over it, I can't argue with them. There was a time where I could say, no, hold on. I don't really think that's going to happen. There was times in the past where you could give someone the benefit of the doubt, and you could say, well, I don't think they would take it that far. I understand that George W. Bush is doing all these terrorist alerts, and I understand that he's, they're raising all these alerts up and scaring people half to death, and he could do that right before the election, and he could try to pause it and things, but I don't think he's going to, and he didn't. But there's no way that I could ever say to anyone now that Trump's not going to do these things. And these states sitting back doing this, they're basically... you couldn't have a more clear cut, pick me, don't forget about me. That's pretty much what this is. And to me, they're just aiding him in all of his bullshit. And of course, it's the red states doing it. And, I have people all the time saying, Brando, we're in a civil war, and I say to myself, I can't argue with that one either. And that's what sucks. I wish that I could. I wish that I had a different message to bring today. I wish that I could tell you, oh, don't worry about that. Yeah, it's going to be okay. Don't worry about that. But I can't say that because of what I see. And I just really wish that the people that screamed about the tyrannical government the loudest, I wish they would recognize now what's right in front of our faces. And I want to go ahead and say that I always recognized that they was full of shit. And I predict, I don't like making predictions, but I would predict that if Donald Trump ever asks that tyrannical government for their guns, you'll see them get in their pickup trucks, they'll drive to D.C. and they'll lay them down at his feet. I believe that with all my heart. Because they have no standard. They have no standard for the things they say. It's okay for them to say, don't tread on me, but they don't give a flying fuck if you tread on everybody else. So you can't believe in that concept. You can't believe in, I want the government to stay out of my business, and then sit there and cheer it on as you weaponize it against everyone who you disagree with. You can't have it both ways. I don't like MAGA. I don't like what they stand for, but they're free to say what they want to say. We can fact check them. We can call them out. We can sit here and say they're full of shit all day, but I'm for their right to say what they want to say. I'm not for them going out here and committing violence. I'm not for them trying to overthrow the government. Not those things. I'm not for them spreading a bunch of lies and misinformation. We're always going to hold them to account. But I'm for their freedom of speech and their freedom to be the assholes that they are. And you can't. So in order for me to, I have to include them when I say I want us to all have those freedoms. I have to include those assholes. They don't do that when the role is reversed. When the role is reversed, it's all about how can we get ours and screw anyone else. That is basically MAGA's message. We have ours and fuck you. That's what they believe in.